The stars looked different from the bridge of the Resilience. Commander Susan Miller had spent 20 years in space, but she had never seen the stars look so cold and distant. Maybe it was because she now knew that those same stars did not care if humanity lived or died. Susan stood tall, her gray uniform neat despite 3 days without sleep. The ship hummed around her, the last and best warship humans had ever built. Her crew worked quietly at their stations, each person knowing what was coming. "Commander, the diplomatic ship is returning," said Jack Wilson, the communications officer. His voice was flat, empty of hope. Susan nodded. "Put them on screen when they dock." Everyone on the bridge already knew what the answer would be. This was the third time Earth had sent diplomats to the Galactic Council. The third time they had begged for help against the Void Scourge. The huge black mass that ate light and matter had appeared 6 months ago at the edge of human space. It moved slowly but without stopping, consuming everything in its path. Earth scientists had found proof that the Void Scourge was not natural. Someone had made it. Someone had aimed it at human worlds. The main screen lit up, showing the face of Ambassador Greg Porter. His eyes were red from lack of sleep, his face lined with new wrinkles that hadn't been there 3 days ago. "They said no again," Greg said simply. "All 12 council races voted against helping us." Susan's hands tightened into fists at her sides. "Did they give a reason?" "The same as before. They claim we are too unpredictable, too dangerous to share their safe spaces with." Greg's voice cracked slightly. "But I heard things in the halls before the vote. Some of them see the Void Scourge as a simple solution to what they call the human problem." Lieutenant Alan Peters stepped forward, handing Susan a tablet with the official statement from the council. She read it quickly. The council had denied humanity's request for safe passage through alien territories. They had refused to share their advanced shielding technology. They had rejected Earth's call for united defense. "They're leaving us to die," Alan said quietly. Susan looked around the bridge. 25 crew members all watching her, waiting for her to say something that would make this better. But there was nothing that could make this better. "How long do we have?" she asked. Dr. Olivia Grant looked up from her science station. Her dark skin looked ashen under the bridge lights. "The Void Scourge will reach our outer colonies in 2 weeks, Earth itself in less than 3 months. 3 months. 12 weeks. 84 days. Not enough time to evacuate even a small fraction of Earth's 8 billion people, not without help from the council races who had just voted to let them all die." "They fear us," Susan said, looking back at the screen where Greg's tired face waited. "They fear how quickly we've grown, how fast we learn, how willing we are to try new things while they stick to old ways." "Fear makes people do terrible things," Greg agreed. "But I never thought—" He couldn't finish the sentence. Susan turned, away from the screen, looking instead at the small model of Earth that sat on her desk. A small blue marble so fragile. Her home. "Send the message to Earth," she told Jack. "Operation Eternal Echo is now active." Jack's fingers moved over his console. "Message sent, Commander." On Earth, deep under the Rocky Mountains in North America, Director William Hayes received the message from the Resilience. He stared at his screen for a long moment before pressing the button that would call the emergency session of the Global Defense Council. Within an hour, 50 faces filled the screens around William's underground office. The best minds of Earth, scientists, military leaders, elected officials, all gathered virtually to hear the news they had been dreading. "The Council has abandoned us," William said without greeting. "Commander Miller reports that all 12 races voted against providing aid." A heavy silence filled the room. These people had known it was coming, but hearing it made it real in a way that could no longer be denied. "We have confirmed what we suspected," William continued. "Our spies report that at least 3 council races, the Araxians, the Voth Imperium, and the Zin Collective, knew about the Void Scourge before it appeared. We believe one or more of them may have created it." Angry shouts filled the screens. William let them vent for a moment before raising his hand for silence. "We don't have time for anger," he said. "We have 78 days until the Void Scourge, Reaches Earth. We need to decide now if we move forward with Operation Eternal Echo. Dr. Linda Powell stood up. Her white lab coat was stained with coffee. Her red hair was tied back in a messy ponytail. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Project Lighthouse is ready, she said. The quantum resonance transmitters have been installed in bunkers across Earth and our major colonies. Each contains the entire record of human knowledge, art, history and technology, along with genetic samples and replication templates. Linda paused, letting her next words sink in. The broadcast will be unstoppable. Once activated, it cannot be blocked or shut down. Every advanced communication system in the galaxy will receive our message. Officer Samuel Young spoke next. The information packages are ready as well. Every secret communication about the Void Scourge, every council vote, every piece of evidence showing which civilizations created it, all will be revealed to every being across thousands of worlds. William nodded slowly. What they were considering wasn't just a desperate act of survival. It was possibly the greatest act of revenge in galactic history. They think they can wipe us out, and no one will know what they did, he said quietly. They're wrong. If we can't live, we will make sure the truth lives forever. We will send a message that will echo through the stars long after Earth is gone. Samuel's face was grim. Once deployed, there's no stopping it. Every simulation shows the same result. The council worlds will face civil unrest, possibly even revolution, when their people learn what their leaders have done. William looked around the room. We're not just sending a message. We're sending a warning and a legacy. If they won't allow us to live, they'll have to face what we leave behind. The vote took less than 5 minutes. It was unanimous. Operation Eternal Echo would begin immediately. Back on the Resilience, Susan Miller received confirmation from Earth. She closed her eyes briefly, feeling the weight of what was to come. Send the fleet-wide order, she told Jack. All ships are to prepare for the final defense of Earth. We buy time for the transmitters to be fully powered. Yes, Commander, Jack replied. His hands were steady now, his purpose clear. Susan turned, to look once more at the stars through the view screen. Cold and distant, yes. But soon they would carry humanity's final message, a truth that would burn across the galaxy long after the last human was gone. Begin the countdown, she said. Humanity's last stand starts now. Director William Hayes walked through the underground bunker, his footsteps echoing off the concrete walls. His meeting with the Global Defense Council had ended an hour ago. Now, the wheels were turning. Operation Eternal Echo had begun. He entered the main control room where 30 people worked at computer stations. Screens covered the walls showing maps of Earth with blinking red dots. Each dot marked a quantum transmitter site. Status report, William said to the room. Dr. Linda Powell looked up from her station. Dark circles hung under her eyes. She hadn't slept in 3 days, but her voice was clear and strong. Transmitters 1 through 57 are online, she said. The remaining 23 will be ready within 4 hours. The colonial sites report similar progress. William nodded. And the message packages? Officer Samuel Young stepped forward with a tablet. All data is prepared and loaded. The truth packages are ready for broadcast. The truth packages. Such a simple name for what might be the most powerful weapon humans had ever made. Not bombs or lasers, but information. The evidence that would show every being in the galaxy how the council races had betrayed humanity. Show me the latest on the Void Scourge, William ordered. A large screen changed to show a star map. A black mass covered one edge, slowly eating its way toward human space. The outer colony of New Hope would be the first to go. After that, 6 more colonies would fall before the Scourge reached Earth. It's moving faster than we predicted, said Dr. Frank Davis, the lead scientist studying the Scourge. New Hope has less than 10 days now. William felt his stomach tighten. Speed up the evacuations. Get as many people as possible back to Earth. Yes, sir, Frank replied. But even with every ship we have, we can only move about 60% of the colonists. 40% would be left behind. William closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, He looked straight at Linda. How soon can the transmitters be ready to fire? Linda didn't blink. Full power in 8 days. But we can do a partial broadcast in 6 if we have to. Make it 5, William said. New Hope's people deserve to know their sacrifice won't be forgotten. Linda nodded, her face grim but determined. We'll make it happen. On the colony world of New Hope, Governor Diane Roberts watched the evacuation ships landing and taking off. Lines of people waited to board, carrying only what they could fit in one small bag. Most would leave everything behind. Diane's assistant, Ben Lee, stood beside her with a tablet showing the evacuation numbers. We've moved 30,000 people so far, he said. Another 120,000 to go. And how many can we actually get out before the scourge arrives? Diane asked, though she already knew the answer. Ben hesitated. About 70,000 total. Maybe 75 if we pack the ships beyond safety limits. Diane nodded slowly. More than half of her people would die here. Has anyone chosen to stay who could leave? Yes, Ben said. About 5,000 have given up their spots to others, mostly older folks giving their places to young families. Tears filled Diane's eyes, but she blinked them away. There was too much work to do for tears. Make sure their names are recorded. For the Echo, they deserve to be remembered. Ben nodded. I will. Back on Earth in a lab deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, Dr. Paul Adams worked with his team to finish the final pieces of the Echo message. His part was different from the truth packages. He was building something that could last forever. The storage crystals are complete, said his assistant, Mary Wilson. Each one can hold the entire record of human history, art, and science, and they'll last for at least 10,000 years, even in harsh conditions. Paul nodded as he carefully placed one crystal into a protective case. It was small, about the size of his thumb, but it contained everything. All human knowledge. All human stories. Everything they had ever been or hoped to be. 10,000 years isn't long enough, he said. Not for what we need. Mary smiled slightly. That's why we made the replicators. The replicators were perhaps the most elegant part of Operation Eternal Echo. Each transmitter would send out instructions, patterns embedded in quantum waves, that would cause certain common materials to form into new storage crystals. As long as the broadcast continued, new crystals would appear across the galaxy, growing like seeds from the quantum soil. The tests are positive, Mary continued. The patterns are stable. Once the broadcast begins, nothing can stop the spread. Paul placed his hand on the crystal case. This is what we leave behind. Not just our anger or our proof of betrayal. Our story. Who we were. What we learned. What we loved. In orbit around Jupiter, Chief Engineer Kimberly West floated in her spacesuit, making final adjustments to the massive quantum array. The giant structure looked like a flower made of metal and light, its petals aimed at different parts of the sky. Her partner, Joe Garcia, worked on the other side of the array. His voice came through her helmet speaker. Power couplings are secure. How's the alignment? Almost there, Kim replied, carefully turning a dial. The petals shifted slightly, aligning with invisible points in space. There, perfect alignment, with the Earth and colony transmitters. They had built 7 of these arrays throughout the solar system. When activated, they would link together, creating a broadcast network powerful enough to reach the farthest corners of the galaxy. Control, this is West, Kim said into her comm. Jupiter array is aligned and ready for power-up sequence. Confirmed. Engineer West, came the reply from Control. Return to the station. Storm patterns show increased activity in your sector. Kim looked up. Jupiter's giant red spot was visible, a massive storm that had raged for centuries. It seemed bigger than usual, angrier. Or maybe that was just her own anger reflected back at her. Coming home, she said, pushing away from the array. As she flew back toward the station, Kim looked beyond Jupiter to the distant point of light that was Earth. She had been born there, but she hadn't visited in 3 years. Now, she would never see it again. On the Resilience, Commander Susan Miller received the latest reports from Earth. Operation Eternal Echo was proceeding faster than expected. The transmitters would be ready in 5 days. The fleet is in position, Lieutenant Alan Peters told her. All 27 warships are stationed between New Hope and the approaching Scourge. Susan nodded. Tell the captains to prepare their crews. We won't stop this thing, but we'll measure it. We'll record it. Every piece of data goes into the Echo. Alan's face was solemn. They know, Commander. Every ship, every crew. They know what they're doing. Susan turned to look at the main screen. It showed the fleet spread out in a defensive formation. 27 ships against the darkness that was coming to swallow them all. Humanity's last stand, she said quietly. Not to win, but to be remembered. The colony of New Hope fell in silence. There was no explosion, no fire, no dramatic end. The Void Scourge simply moved over the planet like a dark fog, and everything it touched stopped existing. On the bridge of the Resilience, Commander Susan Miller watched the sensor readings as New Hope disappeared. 20,000 people had been left behind, people who had given up their evacuation spots so others could live. Record everything, Susan ordered. Her voice was steady, but her hands gripped the arms of her chair tightly. Every bit of data goes into the Echo. Jack Wilson, at the communications station, worked quickly. All readings are being sent to Earth now, Commander. Lieutenant Allen Peters looked up from his screen. The Defiance is reporting strange readings from the edge of the Scourge. They've sent a probe in. The Defiance was one of the 5 ships Susan had positioned closest to the Scourge. Captain Ryan Hill commanded it. He was a good officer, brave and smart. Put it on screen, Susan said. The main view screen changed to show a video feed from the HFY probe. At first, all they could see was stars. Then at the edge of the screen, darkness began to creep in, not like a cloud or a shadow, but like reality itself was being erased. Where the darkness touched, nothing remained. The probe is still transmitting, Alan said, sounding surprised. It should have been destroyed by now. Susan leaned forward. What's happening? I don't know, Alan admitted. The probe is partly inside the Scourge, but still functioning. It's sending back readings unlike anything we've seen before. Jack's console beeped. Incoming message from Earth. Director Hayes wants to speak with you, Commander. Susan nodded. Put him through. William Hayes appeared on a side screen. He looked tired but focused. Commander, are you seeing these readings from the Defiance's probe? Yes, Susan replied. What does it mean? The Void Scourge isn't just destroying matter, William explained. It's erasing the laws of physics themselves. Space, time, everything we understand about reality breaks down inside it. Susan felt a cold chill run down her spine. Is it a weapon? Yes, William said grimly. And now we know for sure. It was designed to target human biosignatures specifically. The probe is still working because it doesn't contain human DNA markers. This thing was created to wipe out humanity, and nothing else. The bridge fell silent as everyone took in this information. The council races hadn't just abandoned them. At least one of them had deliberately created a weapon to kill every human in the galaxy. How long until the transmitters are ready? Susan asked. 3 days, William answered. We've had to evacuate the Jupiter station. The Scourge is moving faster than we predicted, but the transmitter there is automated now. It will activate with the others. Susan nodded. The fleet will hold position as long as possible to gather more data. Understood, William said. Hayes out. As the screen went dark, Susan turned to her crew. Now we know what we're facing. Not just neglect, but murder. The council didn't just leave us to die. They made sure we would die. In the underground bunker in Colorado, Dr. Linda Powell worked with her team to process the new data from the Defiance's probe. With each new piece of information, the picture became clearer and more terrifying. The Void Scourge is programmable, Linda told William Hayes. It can be aimed at specific genetic patterns. Right now it's set to target humans, but it could be reprogrammed to target any species. William paced the room thinking. So whoever created this has made a weapon that could wipe out any race in the galaxy. including their own, if someone else got control of it. Linda nodded. Exactly. The Araxians, the Voth, the Zin, whoever made this has put the entire galaxy at risk, not just us. Add this to the echo, William ordered. Every world needs to know what kind of weapon has been created, and what kind of people would use it. At the quantum transmitter station in Australia, Dr. Olivia Grant had been reassigned from the Resilience to help with the final preparations. She worked side by side with Dr. Paul Adams, fine-tuning the message that would be sent across the galaxy. The truth packages are ready, Olivia said, checking the system one last time. Every secret council meeting, every vote against helping us, every piece of evidence showing who created the scourge. It's all here. Paul nodded. And the legacy data is prepared too. All of human history, art, science, culture, even our genetic codes. We won't be forgotten. Olivia looked at the small quantum crystal in her hand. It glowed with a soft blue light, holding within it the sum total of human knowledge and experience. Do you think anyone will care? She asked quietly. After we're gone, will anyone in the galaxy mourn us? Paul was silent for a moment. I don't know if they'll mourn us, he finally said. But they'll know us and they'll know what was done to us. That's all we can hope for now. In space, the human fleet continued to study the Void Scourge as it moved toward the next colony. The Defiance had launched 3 more probes, each one gathering valuable data that was immediately sent back to Earth. Captain Ryan Hill of the Defiance spoke with Commander Susan Miller over a secure channel. The Scourge is definitely artificial, he reported. We've found patterns in its movement that can't be natural, and it adjusts course to intercept human populations with perfect accuracy. Any sign of who controls it? Susan asked. Ryan shook his head. Not yet, but we're still looking. On Earth, the last of the colony evacuees were being settled. Every city was overcrowded now, with people living in stadiums, parks, and hastily built shelters. But at least they were alive. For now, Major Carol Davis supervised the distribution of supplies in what had once been Central Park in New York. Thousands of people from New Mars Colony lived there now, in tents and prefab units. We have enough food for 2 months, Carol told her assistant Steve Baker. After that, she didn't need to finish the sentence. After that, the Void Scourge would reach Earth. Food wouldn't matter anymore. The children are asking when they can go home, Steve said quietly. Carol looked across the park at a group of kids playing near a fountain. Tell them the truth. They can't go home, none of us can. But tell them about the Echo too, how we're making sure the galaxy will remember us. Steve nodded. I will. In orbit around Earth, the last pieces of the quantum network were being connected. Engineer Joe Garcia worked with a team to link the orbital platforms that would amplify the transmission. Final connection complete, Joe reported to Control. The network is ready for power-up sequence. Good work, came the reply. Return to station. Activation begins in 48 hours. Joe looked down at the blue planet below him. From up here, there was no sign of the doom approaching. Earth looked peaceful, beautiful, the home of humanity for thousands of years, soon to be just another empty rock in space. We're coming, Earth, Joe whispered, though no one could hear him. But we're leaving something behind too, something they can never erase. In the deep bunker where Director William Hayes waited for the final countdown, a message arrived from the Resilience. Susan Miller's face appeared on his screen. Director, we found something, she said, her eyes wide with shock. The Defiance's probes have detected a control signal. We know who's directing the Void Scourge. William leaned forward. Who? The Zin Collective, Susan replied. We've intercepted communications between their ships. They're following the Scourge, observing its progress. They're treating this as an experiment. William's face hardened. Added to the echo, every being in the galaxy will know what the Zin have done. Their own people will know. Susan nodded. Resilience out. William sat back in his chair, staring at the blank screen. In less than 2 days, Operation Eternal Echo would begin. Humanity's final message would spread across the stars. The truth would be told, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Void Scourge moved faster now. After consuming New Hope, it seemed to grow stronger, hungrier. The next human colony, Freedom, had only 3 days left. On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Ryan Hill watched the darkness approach through the main view screen. His ship was closest to the edge of the Scourge, gathering data that might help Earth understand what they were facing. "Launch the final probe," Ryan ordered. His science officer, Laura Green, pressed a button on her console, and a small craft shot out from the ship. "Probe is away," Laura reported. "It will reach the edge of the Scourge in 5 minutes." This probe was special. The others had only taken readings from the outside of the Void Scourge. This one would fly directly into it, sending back data for as long as it could. "All readings are being transmitted to Earth in real time," Laura continued. "And to the Resilience." Ryan nodded. Commander Susan Miller on the Resilience was coordinating the entire fleet. Every piece of information they gathered would become part of Operation Eternal Echo, humanity's final message to the galaxy. "Probe reaching Scourge edge in 10 seconds, Laura said, her eyes fixed on her screen. 9, 8, 7. The bridge crew fell silent, watching. The small probe, barely visible on the screen, flew toward the black wall of nothing. 3, 2, 1. Contact. The probe entered the darkness. For a moment, nothing happened. Then data began to flood Laura's console. "We're getting readings," she exclaimed. "The probe is still transmitting from inside the Scourge." Ryan moved to stand beside her, staring at the stream of numbers and symbols on her screen. "What are we seeing?" Laura shook her head, her eyes wide. "It's impossible. The laws of physics are breaking down inside the Scourge. Space and time are being rewritten." "Can the probe tell us how to stop it?" Ryan asked, though he already knew the answer. "No," Laura said quietly. "But it confirms what we suspected. This is weapon technology far beyond anything humanity has ever seen, and it was made specifically to destroy us." Ryan straightened up, his face grim. "Send everything to Earth. The galaxy needs to know what was done here." "On Earth?" "In the underground. Control Center." Director William Hayes studied the data coming in from the Defiance's probe. Each new piece of information made the picture clearer and more disturbing. "The Void Scourge doesn't just destroy," he told the gathered scientists and military leaders. "It rewrites reality itself. It unmakes things at the most basic level." "Doctor?" Linda Powell nodded. "And it's programmed to target human genetic patterns, nothing else, just us." "How long until Operation Eternal Echo is ready?" William asked. 24 hours, Linda replied. "All transmitters are powered up and synchronized. The quantum network is stable." William looked around the room. These people had worked day and night for weeks to prepare humanity's final message. Now, they had just 1 day left to complete it. "Add the new data from the Defiance," he ordered. "Make sure the galaxy knows exactly what the Zin Collective created, and what the Council allowed to happen." In New York, Major Carol Davis helped the last groups of people move into the deep shelters beneath the city. The Void Scourge would reach Earth in less than a week, but most people would be gone before then. The shelters wouldn't save them. Nothing could do that, but they would give people time to say goodbye. "Everyone has been assigned a place," Carol told her team. "Food and water for 5 days, medical supplies, and terminals to record final messages for the Echo." Steve Baker, her assistant, looked around at the rows of bunks stretching into the distance under the city. "Will it be enough time?" Carol nodded. "It will have to be. We can't stop what's coming, but we can decide how we face it." People moved quietly through the shelter, finding their assigned spaces, setting down the few belongings they had brought. Some cried, some prayed, some sat in silence, staring at nothing. But in one corner, a group of children had gathered around an old woman who was reading from a book. Carol walked closer to listen. And so the brave explorer planted the flag on the new world, the old woman read, her voice steady and calm. The first human to stand on a planet beyond our solar system. The beginning of a new chapter in our story. The children listened, their eyes wide. One little boy asked, "Will there be more human explorers after us?" The old woman closed the book. "Not like us, but the echo will carry our story to the stars. Perhaps someday someone will read about us and remember." On the quantum transmitter station in Australia, Dr. Paul Adams made the final adjustments to the broadcast system. Each of the 80 transmitters around the world was now linked to the others, forming a network that would send humanity's message across the galaxy at the speed of thought. "All systems are green," Paul reported to Dr. Olivia Grant, who had just arrived from her shift. "The quantum harmonics are stable. When we activate, nothing will be able to block the signal." Olivia checked her own readings. "The information packages are all loaded. Truth, legacy, warning. Everything we want the galaxy to know." Paul's hands moved over his console. "I've added one more thing. A gift." "A gift?" Olivia looked surprised. "For who?" "For whoever finds our message," Paul said. "The complete genetic code of 5,000 plant and animal species from Earth. The building blocks of our world. Even if we're gone, something of Earth might live on." Olivia smiled for the first time in days. "That's beautiful, Paul." In space, the human fleet continued to hold position between the Void Scourge and Earth, 27 ships against the darkness that had already consumed 2 human colonies. On the Resilience, Commander Susan Miller received a message from the Defiance. The probe inside the Scourge had finally stopped transmitting, but not before sending one last crucial piece of information. "The Scourge has a central control node," Susan told her bridge crew. "A point that directs its movement and targets. If we could reach it," Lieutenant Alan Peters finished her thought, "we could shut it down." Susan shook her head. "We can't reach it. It's too deep inside the Scourge. Nothing survives in there." "But we know it exists," Alan pointed out. "And now, so will everyone else in the galaxy." Susan nodded slowly. "Add it to the echo. The Zin created this weapon. The Council allowed it to be used. But they never considered what would happen when the truth came out." Jack Wilson, at Communications, suddenly straightened in his chair. "Commander, we're detecting ships approaching from the direction of Zin space." "How many?" Susan asked. 5, Jack replied. "Warships based on their energy signatures." Susan's eyes narrowed. "They've come to watch, to see their weapon in action." "They're staying well back from the Scourge," Jack noted. "Outside our weapons range as well." "They're cowards," Alan said bitterly. "They won't even face us." Susan turned to look at the main screen, where the distant pinpoints of light that were Zin ships could be seen. "They'll face the consequences of what they've done. Not from us, but from every other race in the galaxy once the echo goes out." On Earth, the final countdown for Operation Eternal Echo had begun. 24 hours until humanity's last message would spread across the stars. William Hayes looked at the timer on the main screen of the control center. Soon, it would be done. Humanity would be gone, but not forgotten. And those who had caused their end would face the judgment of the galaxy. "May they remember us," he said quietly, "and may they never forgive what was done here." The countdown reached 0. Across Earth and the remaining human colonies, the quantum transmitters hummed to life. In space stations, on ships, in deep bunkers, humans gathered to witness the beginning of the end. In the control center beneath, the Rocky Mountains, Director William Hayes placed his hand on the final activation switch. Around him stood the leaders of the Global Defense Council, their faces solemn. "Operation Eternal Echo is now active," William said, his voice steady. He pressed the switch. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the screens around the room lit up with confirmation signals from transmitters around the world. The quantum network was online. The broadcast had begun. Across the galaxy, on thousands of worlds, something strange happened. Screens flickered, communication systems buzzed. With unexpected signals. Quantum data networks were flooded with information that bypassed every security measure, every firewall, every protection. The message began to appear everywhere at once. On the bridge of the Resilience, Commander Susan Miller watched as the signal strength indicators climbed to maximum levels. The echo was spreading across the stars at the speed of thought, carried by quantum waves that couldn't be stopped or blocked. Signal confirmed, Jack Wilson reported from his communication station. All transmitters are broadcasting at full power. Susan nodded. And the Zin ships? Still holding position, Lieutenant Alan Peters replied. They seem to be confused. Their communications have increased dramatically in the last few minutes. Susan allowed herself a small smile. They've noticed our broadcast. They're about to learn what it means to face the truth. The Void Scourge continued its relentless advance toward Earth. It had consumed the colony of Freedom overnight, adding its mass to the growing darkness. The next colony, New Eden, would fall within hours. But now, something else was spreading through the galaxy. Not destruction, but information. Not darkness, but truth. In the deep shelter beneath New York, Major Carol Davis watched as the people around her gathered near the communications screens. The echo was being shown here too, so everyone could see what humanity's final message contained. The screens showed images of Earth, its oceans, forests, cities. The history of humanity played out in brief scenes. The first cities, the great works of art, the journey into space. Then came the records of the Galactic Council meetings where the decision to abandon humanity was made. The Council has voted, announced the Voth representative in the recording. The human petition for aid against the Void Scourge is denied. Their evacuation corridors through our territories are refused. Another recording began to play. This one showed a laboratory where strange dark energy swirled in containment fields. Zin scientists moved around the energy, taking readings, making adjustments. Project Void is proceeding as planned, said one scientist. The targeting parameters are set for human genetic patterns only. The council races will be unaffected. Steve Baker, standing beside Carol, shook his head in disbelief. They planned this all along. They created the scourge to kill us. Carol nodded. And now everyone in the galaxy knows. On the Zin homeworld, confusion turned to panic as the truth about the Void Scourge spread through their population. The carefully controlled information systems of the collective could not stop the quantum broadcast. Every Zin citizen saw the evidence of what their leaders had done. Similar scenes played out across all 12 council worlds. Ordinary citizens learned for the first time how their representatives had voted to let an entire species die. How some of them had actively helped create the weapon that would kill billions of humans. In the quantum transmitter station in Australia, Dr. Paul Adams and Dr. Olivia Grant monitored the broadcast signal strength. The echo is reaching every corner of the galaxy, Paul said, checking his instruments. All 80 Earth transmitters are operating at full capacity. The space-based arrays are amplifying the signal just as we planned. Olivia looked at a different screen, which showed the approaching edge of the Void Scourge. How long do we have? Maybe 3 days before it reaches Earth, Paul replied. But the broadcast will continue even after we're gone. We built the transmitters to run on automated systems for as long as possible. Olivia placed her hand on Paul's shoulder. We won't be forgotten. On the Defiance, Captain Ryan Hill received new orders from the Resilience. All human ships were to pull back to Earth for humanity's final stand. Set course for Earth, Ryan told his navigation officer. Maximum speed. As the Defiance turned, away from the advancing darkness, Ryan took one last look at the view screen. The Void Scourge filled half the screen now, a wall of nothing that consumed everything it touched. We may die, he told his crew, but we will not die in silence. We will not die unknown. The galaxy will remember us. The Defiance's engines flared, bright as the ship raced toward Earth. Behind it, the darkness followed, hungry and unstoppable. In the deep bunker, Director William Hayes received reports from around the galaxy. The echo was working better than they had hoped. On every council world, the truth was spreading like wildfire. The Araxian government has fallen, an aide reported. Their people are rioting in the streets after learning about their leader's role in the scourge. Another aide spoke up. The Voth Imperium is in chaos. 3 colony worlds have declared independence from the central authority. William nodded, taking in the reports. And the Zin? Complete social collapse, the aide replied. Their entire governmental system depended on carefully controlled information. The Echo has destroyed that control. Their people know everything now. William turned to look at the main screen where a timer counted down the hours until the Void Scourge would reach Earth. Humanity would be gone, but they had changed the galaxy forever. We told the truth, he said quietly. They tried to erase us from history. Instead, we made sure we would never be forgotten. On the Resilience, Commander Susan Miller prepared her ship and crew for the end. The human fleet had gathered in Earth orbit, 27 ships forming a last line of defense against the darkness. The Void Scourge will reach Earth in 64 hours, Susan told her crew. We will hold position and continue to gather data for the Echo until the very end. Jack Wilson at the communication station suddenly straightened. Commander, I'm receiving signals from all over the galaxy, thousands of them. Their responses to the Echo. Susan turned to him, surprised. Put some on screen. The main view screen filled with messages in different languages, all automatically translated. We stand with humanity. The Calaxis people condemn the Council's actions. The free worlds of Orion declare the Void Scourge a crime against all sentient life. The people of Ninar reject our government's decision. We did not choose this. Message after message, from hundreds of worlds, thousands of species. Not all were council races. Many came from the younger civilizations that had no voice in galactic affairs. All of them expressed the same thing: outrage, sympathy, solidarity. They're listening, Susan said softly. They heard us. As the Void Scourge approached Earth, humanity prepared for its end. But the Echo continued to spread, carried by quantum waves that could not be stopped. The truth about what had been done to humanity reached every corner of the galaxy. The message was simple. This is humanity's final message to the galaxy. We did not deserve extinction. You chose to let us die because you feared our potential. The evidence of your complicity has now been shared with every sentient being under your rule. You did this to yourselves. Humanity would be gone, but they would never be forgotten, and those who had caused their end would live with the consequences of their actions forever. The final echo of humanity would resonate through the stars for all time.